I think he probably will. The polling suggests that he will, but the vagaries of a first-past-the-post electoral system, the possibility of tactical voting by some voters, means that it'll all be up for grabs until we see finally what happens in the early hours of Friday morning. But if I had to make a bet, my bet would be Boris Johnson wins, and he wins with a working majority.
I wanted to ask you about another issue as well, because the former Prime Minister Tony Blair and also John Major have really been urging the British public here to vote with tactics in this election to deny Boris Johnson that majority. How will you be voting in the election?
Well, I've already voted by post, so and I live in a safe Conservative seat, so it's really not a big issue there. But look, at the beginning of this campaign, there was quite a lot of talk about the Liberal Democrats breaking through during this election and stealing votes from the Conservatives. It hasn't happened. The Liberal Democrat campaign has fallen flat. I think they made some strategic mistakes, positioning themselves as revoking the Article 50 notice, terminating Brexit without any further reference to British people. That hasn't gone down well. And look, on the polling at the moment, it looks as though British politics is heading back towards the traditional two-party system, rather than, as many people were predicting just a few months ago, splintering further into a multi-party system.
So what are these former Prime Ministers getting at, and does it worry you that this is the message that we're hearing from them to the British people about what it could mean for the election?
So I think British electorate is pretty much made up its mind what it wants to do. I'd be surprised if there's late change now. Look, for me, the question is not so much about what happens on Thursday night. I'm expecting that to deliver a Boris Johnson majority government. The question for me is what Boris Johnson will do with the undoubted authority that he will gain from being the first Conservative Prime Minister for 25 years to obtain a decent working majority in Parliament. He can use that to deliver a Brexit which protects the British economy, allows him to deliver on many of his ambitions for public services, for reduced taxation, or he can use it to deliver a hard Brexit, which means that we will struggle to deliver on those promises because the economy will be in a much worse position. So it's going to be all up to him to decide how to interpret Brexit once we've left the European Union.
So what do you think the most likely scenario is then? Let's say Boris Johnson is able to retain power with that majority. What happens next? Because Mohammed Al-Arian told me just yesterday that he would prefer to see a hard Brexit rather than the political churn and uncertainty that the Conservatives have been delivering throughout the course of this Brexit process. You've basically taken asset markets through the hedge, haven't you, over the past few months with this?
Well, the responsibility of the UK government is to protect the interests of the UK population, not the interests of individual firms or investors. And firms and investors have developed strategies over the last 3 years to make sure that they will be in a good position whatever happens in Brexit. But the UK government has to make sure that the jobs, the wealth creation remains in the UK. And I think that what will happen if Boris wins the election with a good, solid majority is clear. He will push through Brexit very quickly. It will be done, and Britain will leave the European Union. But in a sense, that isn't the interesting question. The interesting question is what happens thereafter. How do we move forward in negotiating a future relationship with the European Union? And how do we manage the interim period? Because we only have until the end of next year in the so-called transition. The UK government would have to ask for an extension by June of 2020 if they wanted one. If they don't want one, they'll need to come to some alternative arrangement with the European Union that ensures that goods can continue to flow freely, that services can continue to be traded across the UK-EU border while we get to a long-term future arrangement. Nobody in Europe thinks that we're going to get to the final long-term deal by the end of 2020. And so we have to find a way of working together over a more extended period that allows us to reach that good outcome.
Hi. Hi, I'm Joanna Bersecci, and thank you for watching. You can check out more of our videos by clicking on the boxes on the screen. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more from CNBC International. Thank you for watching.